Okay, hey YouTube, Todd here again, some guitar guy. First off, and as always, thanks for watching and listening, as this is my first dedicated YouTube podcast episode. So I decided to try this. YouTube has opened this. A podcast is something I've looked at off and on for years, never really pulled the trigger on it, and really kind of most of my videos are podcasts, so, at least in YouTube terms. So, yeah, I thought I would give this a try. And what better way than to talk about why I ride a Sportster, right? So, yeah, let's get into it. So there's a quote, an anonymous quote. I put that in my videos now that I want to kind of start with and circle back to that really nails it for me. And it's, I didn't want a Harley, so I bought a Sportster. I wanted a Sportster, so I bought a Harley. And that does really nail it for me. So how did I get to I don't know, being a Sportster rider, fan, whatever, and especially from this bike? Well, this was my introduction to street bikes. So it's the end of 2024. We're gonna dial all the way back to about 1985. I graduated high school in '84. I'd learned to ride on dirt bikes from elementary school, and this was my first street bike. I managed to save up a little bit of money and found this bike for sale in the paper, in the classified ads. Went and looked at it, and this would be my first Kawasaki. I'd owned a Honda and a Suzuki previously, and a lot of familiarities from the dirt bikes I'd owned. Clutch, brake. Now it has turn signals and mirrors and all that kind of stuff. Heavier, but a super great little bike. And I think, I don't know when the term UJM came to be. Probably not then, and I don't even know what year this is, and I don't remember the year of the bike I had. It would have been an early 80s model, maybe 81, 82. Mine was blue, but this was I don't know, the best pick I could find, borrowed off the internet. Belt driven, that was kind of its claim to fame for smoothness, and just a great little standard, just a plain old motorcycle, right? And this would probably have been about the dawn of motorcycles kind of splitting off into sport bikes and dual purpose and all that kind of stuff. The big chrome front fender, it's hard to see really in both of these shots, but the big chrome front fender, parallel twin, carbureted, the big comfy wide seat. Now mine didn't have this big kind of crazy sissy bar, this one does, but the big wide comfortable seat, great for around town, great for road tripping, great fuel economy. You could ride two up around town. I never took it on the interstate, and it would definitely be out of its element two up on an interstate. One up it would probably do okay. Never tried it, but just a lot of fun with this bike. So let's take a look at the second bike. So this, not sure of the year. This is a Yamaha Maxim 400. So I had the Kawa for a year or so, maybe a year and a half. Ran out of money, had to sell it, wanted another one, saved up a little money, and then ended up with this Yamaha Maxim. So this would be the first Yamaha 400. So a lot of similarities to the Kawa. The big difference, and I hate to admit this now, but I didn't realize it at the time. This is a monoshock bike. Chain driven, so a little bit more performance oriented, I guess, than the Kawa. But a parallel twin, big wide seat, and you see, just the aesthetics of the bike. Yamaha is, I don't know, they're going for a little bit more aggressive styling, but still, a naked bike, a standard, a roadster, if you will, and also a great bike. Absolutely zero problems with either of these. So life continues to happen. We run out of money and we sell the bike. And then fast forward a couple of years, I was probably 22, maybe 23, when I bought this bike. Again, found it in the classified ads. You would know, and you may not even remember the Hurricane line, but it came in the 600 and I believe a 1000 cc version. This is the CBR, and that was the designator for the model. The story goes that Honda was sued so many times for the Hurricane name, causing deaths and injuries, that they dropped the name and they just went with the CBR designator. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this was a beautiful motorcycle, and this was the color of mine. The gray, kind of charcoal gray with you can't see it in this picture, but with the metallic accents, the really striking red accents, the wheels, the pinstripe. And this was like during maybe the golden era of the sport bike wars. So there was this, and there was the Ninja, and this, of course, both bikes still live on to this day. And the only thing I can tell that's been done to this bike is this aftermarket can, which mine did have too. I don't remember the brand. Looks mean, sounded mean, and was by far the fastest machine I have ever operated, ridden, driven, thought about. I mean, ever even imagined. This thing would scream, absolutely scream. And I'm a fairly ballsy guy. I don't, consider myself whatever the epitome of Clint Eastwood characters or anything. But one thing I never did on this bike, even in 6th gear, was peg that throttle. I mean, it would get you from 0 to dead in no time flat. It really would. It was that fast. Rode it around a lot. No, and with all these motorcycles, I didn't traverse the continent or go up into Canada or Alaska. Day trips, and I don't even think at that point I'd ever done an overnight trip on a motorcycle. Just always day trips. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed riding this, but was also kind of semi-terrified the whole time that it was going to get away from me. And it very easily could get away. This is a great bike, and really, I think about any sport bike for the track. Not the most comfortable to ride. You see the pegs they're not really rear set, I guess. But they're more rear set than what I was accustomed to. The kind of traditional racing tuck, with your hands forward, and but I had a good work buddy, and we still stay in touch, who was a big Harley guy, and he used to give me a hard time about the rice burner, and say, I should get a real motorcycle, and he rode a Harley, and he kind of fell on hard times and was trying to sell his. So I'm going to kind of switch over here to, and this is sadly not the bike. I don't have any pictures of it. This, and we can't even, between two of us, and I don't know how he doesn't remember, because this was his very first new motorcycle he'd ever owned. But we think it was an 83. I graduated in 84. He's older than I am. Excuse me. I don't think it was an 82. So that's the best we can kind of come up with. It was an 83 Sportster. And yeah, he kept on me about, picking at me, and I'd pick back at him that, why would I want to ride something that, leaks oil and breaks down and, all that. And, his final thing, I didn't have anything to say to this, his final thing was, well, come over and ride it and you'll see. And so I finally took him up on it and went over, and that's really what the heart of the video is about, my first experience on a Sportster. So I did, I think I actually rode over, but went over, and he's outside and he's pulled the bike out, and you can just looking at the bike, it is a completely different design approach and design mindset from any of the other bikes I'd owned or ridden at that time. And that's, to me, that's clear. I don't know really how to articulate what I mean by that, but the designers had a much different philosophy in designing and building their machines than the other bikes I'd ridden. So, and it is striking. It's a beautiful bike. Now, mine did not have this black accent on the peanut tank. It was just the sporty red. So I'm kind of checking it out. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it does have disc brakes. That's good. The engine looks a whole lot different. These big kind of eye-catching, the big V-twin cylinders here, the little bitty tank, and I think mine did have a sissy bar. I think, not 100% sure. And he had put straight pipes on it. It's no. When Harleys come off the showroom, the new rider, that's the first thing they do is change the exhaust, and the buckhorn, bars. So, I swing a leg over it and take the weight off the stand and get it under me. And my first impression is just reinforced of the difference in design philosophies. I do feel more like I'm kind of in than on this motorcycle. It makes me feel more, maybe not than the CBR, but than everything except for the CBR. I felt more a part of the motorcycle, and it still hadn't started it yet. The weight, the actual weight of the bike, it's much heavier, or I'll say noticeably heavier than the other bikes. And of course, it's a bigger displacement than any of the others. The 600 was the biggest engine previous to that, and this is the old Ironhead 1000 cc. And I think he had installed, I think he did have some highway pegs on it. But, familiarizing myself with the controls, and I'm like, okay, well, it's got signals, and, there's the kill switch, and pull in the clutch. And was one of the first, I guess the first control difference. This is a cable clutch on a 1000cc bike, and it is very substantial. Where with the other bikes, I could, easily with two fingers, maybe even one, operate the clutch. Hydraulic brakes, front and rear, and they feel pretty similar, but, again, more effort, I guess. And and I'm still kind of feeling the bike out, and trying to get the best feel I can for it static. And he's like, well, fire it up, take it for a spin. So I did, and thumbed the starter, and she fired right up. And it was, I don't know, mild weather. It was probably in the 70s or something. And for the first time, it felt like the motorcycle was alive. It really did. And I don't know how better to describe that. Of course, you have and there's a lot of reasons for that. This was solid mount engine. You have the 270 crank potato thing going on. And yeah, it's like everything, including my fillings, was rattling, right? And that kind of, took me back a little bit. And you can't see anything out of the mirrors, because the images are blurred. And I'm like, whoa. So let her warm up just a little bit. And let me say this too, because I'll forget it if I don't. Sportsters are not top heavy. I don't know how that got started. They sit higher than most of the other Harleys. They have more ground clearance because they're Sportsters, so they can lean, right? Get a better lean angle. But just guessing where the center of gravity is on this bike, I mean, here's the crank, right? It's probably right there. That's probably where the weight is centered. Now, when you sit on it and add 200 pounds or so to the whole thing, and it's distributed by the suspension, it probably does move, I don't know, maybe up here around the battery or something, somewhere in here. But it's not top heavy like, the center of gravity is up here in the tank. It's not. You can look at that and see it's not a top heavy machine. But anyway, kind of back on point. So I slipped the clutch. Well, I clunk it into gear first, and put some effort behind that clutch to bottom it and clunk it into gear. And it lurches a little bit like, the Japanese bikes. And I'm like, well, at least, there's something I'm familiar with. And, start giving a little power. And that's different, a lot different. It's not nearly as smooth and precise. And of course the motorcycle itself, not just because of the straight pipes, but I mean the engine itself is making a lot more noise than the Japanese bikes. Not nearly, I guess, as tight to tolerances or clearances until she warms up. And even fully warm, it's just a louder engine with these push rods and the rockers and all that. And that's oddly, it's different for me, but it's cool at the same time. So slipped the clutch, managed not to stall it right up his driveway. I think it was a gravel driveway, and just take it on a little 15-20 minute kind of tour. And of course I'm conscious that is a small fuel tank, and I don't know how much gas he had in it. I don't want to run out, and plus this was before the age of cell phones. So I do. And, once I get it out on the road and open the throttle a little bit and run through the gears, and this was a 4-speed bike, the engine smooths. And, it's like when you start it, she's saying, all right, let's go. We're ready to go. You started me, let's go. And then, once you start upshifting, going through the gears, the engine smooths right out. And it's just very solid, very substantial. I've seen and read the words agricultural, industrial. I think both of those are, all those are accurate. And I would almost say a tractor on 2 wheels, almost. That kind of implies maybe it's a little, and it is a little clunky, but not nearly as clunky as if you've ever driven a tractor. But that torque this V twin manages, I mean, it really, it's like tree stump pulling torque just off idle. I mean, just give it a little power and you feel like you could, pull a boat or something, or an RV behind you, on this, compared to a bagger, this small platform. So yeah, I rode it around and I have the same shit-eating grin, pardon the expression, remembering as I did actually riding the bike around. And I do have my helmet. That's always been a thing with me. End of story. So, please don't bother trying to change my mind. But, this big grin, I'm riding around, I'm feeling, the torque and the power through it, down to my soul, because of the solid mounted engine and just the design and engineering of the bike. So I come back after a little short ride, and I'm still grinning coming down his driveway, and he's, he waited outside, and he's grinning. He can't see me grinning because I have the helmet on, but he's grinning, and because he knew, that if he ever got me on it, or he strongly suspected that would be the result. So, I shut it down, put her on her stand, and pulling the helmet off and all that. And he's like, "Well, what'd you think?" And yeah, I really couldn't respond. I'm like, "You son of a bitch." He started laughing, and like, "Yeah, I'll buy it." And I did, and had no idea what I was going to do with two motorcycles now. But yeah, and the first impressions were only cemented, reinforced every time I rode it. I'll go over the negatives that ended up. Harley electrical systems of the day, and really up probably through 04, have just basically sucked. And they did on this bike. You notice the battery is right under the seat. About every time I came in, and I think they were still using generators on this bike, it would overcharge and it would soak the foam of the seat, and I never could get that fixed. I did take it to a private Harley shop that's all they worked on. They couldn't fix it. And then this rear cylinder plug, for just sometimes would foul. I don't know why. It's probably running a little bit rich, but something to do with the electrical system too. And I ended up spending a fair amount of money trying to get those issues resolved, and couldn't, and ended up selling the bike. But so to kind of finish on a positive note, when it did run, and nothing with the engine or transmission or anything else, it was just the electrical system. But when it did run, there was nothing really to compare it to anything else I'd ridden. The feeling, not only of the substantialness and agricultural and industrial and all that kind of stuff, nostalgia. I mean, and that came through later. I don't think I really got that the first time I rode it, but the more I rode it, and the more I appreciated it. That if I could time travel and say go back to the 60s on a Sportster, or even 50s, or even 40s pre-Sportster to, basically any motorcycle, or vice versa, if a rider from another era could, teleport to my present day then and jump on this bike, there would be a lot more similarities than differences. Bikes have evolved. This one did have, I think it still had maybe points and whatnot down here, but bikes have evolved, and the Sportster had too, but there would be a lot more in common than different. And it was a burgeoning, I guess, history buff then, and I really loved that too. That just added to it. And I don't know why I can't explain this now. Maybe Harleys are just more common than they were back in the day. But back road, riding back roads all over the county and into other counties, it didn't matter where I went. It was like I was a one bike parade. It really was. I might be exaggerating on my memories, a little what I want it to be than what it was, but that struck me then, that no matter what demographic, socioeconomic area I rode through, the rich, the poor, the black, the white, people would of course hear this thing coming because of the straight pipes, probably before they saw it. Young, old, middle-aged, kids, old people, whatever. If they're out in the yard or going out to check the mail or whatever, cutting the grass, much more often than not, they would stop what they were doing and watch me ride by. Or they're really not watching me, they're the motorcycle, and much more often than not, give a nod, give a wave. An old man plowing a field or something could hear it over his tractor, and give a wave, a nod. Other motorists, cagers, most of them would wave. Little kids, whatever, it didn't matter. And I guess there's a lot of reasons. It's American Iron, and it was, the company was still in existence and making motorcycles. And I haven't, I had an experience. It's with the Japanese bikes. It was almost the opposite. It's like you were invisible. Like people didn't want to see that. They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to acknowledge that. But on that sporty, yeah, people would take notice. And it was kind of weird too with other bikers. Harley riders would of course wave, nod, whatever. But the Japanese guys, riders, were like, I don't know, what's the word? I'm crossing two words, but and my brain's locking up. But yeah, they would just not acknowledge the me or the bike, which I thought was really weird, but anyway, to each their own. So yeah, this probably 1983 Ironhead solid mount, carbureted, and some circles would call it antiquated, Sportster was what started the journey. And I'll just close out this episode by the quote from earlier. I didn't want a Harley, so I bought a Sportster. I wanted a Sportster, so I bought a Harley. That's all I have. Please remember to do the YouTube thing, and until next time, 2 wheels down. Thanks, guys.